Hey guys, cold early morning here. It's around 30 degrees out, but got a busy day at the shop today, so I thought I'd video it for you and hopefully enjoy the video. So we're in the shop now, and this is mostly what I'm going to be working on today. Might be all the day actually. It's a C12. Came in with a dead cylinder, number 6, of course the hardest one to get to, and appeared, although it's very hard to see, that the camshaft's damage or the roller's damage on the lifter. I could see that a little bit. Can't really tell the condition of the camshaft though, so going to have to pull the camshaft out, which means the radiators to come off, and to pull the lifters, you have to pull the cylinder head off. So this is our other project. This is a C15. It's actually the last video I did where I pulled the cylinder head. Gonna be pulling the packs and cutting counterbores, but probably not today. Depends how far I get though on the C12. And there's our head that we will not be reusing. So there's my new time-lapse camera. You can see it on the right there. That's a lot of the video today is going to be shot on that. But I'm going to try and cut it up so it's not all time-lapse. And like I said, I'm going to pull the radiator. Day before, I had already taken the bolts and nuts off for the Jake housings. And then we're going to be pulling the overhead off. Still need to pull the rocker arms. You can see the rocker arms are off on number 6, though, already. And then we're going to pull the valve cover base and do everything else we need to do to get the cylinder head off. So here's the time lapse, and you can see I'm working on the rocker arms assembly now. I'm going to talk about the C12 in this video a little bit too, some design features of it. So C12, one of the few CAT engines that have individual rockers for each cylinder. They have one intake, one exhaust, and one injector rocker. Two intake, 2 exhaust valves per cylinder also, and they're electronic unit injectors. So what I'm doing here is just getting wires disconnected, getting the hoses disconnected, and I've been using this this green masking tape a lot lately to cover up ports. Just any intake, exhaust, or fuel port, I'll try to tape it off. Just our shop is not always the cleanest because it's a hybrid earth moving shop and truck shop, so I try to keep as much dirt and stuff out of the engine as possible. You see I pulled the valve cover base there. And I'm going to leave the injectors in. This is a warranty job actually, and we're trying to... Basically, on a warranty job, you're only fixing what has to be fixed. So if we can pull the cylinder head without removing the injectors, we're going to do that, or try to. Now I'm pulling the coolant manifold on this one, which the engine that took the place of the C12, which is the C13, doesn't have this, but the C12s and C10s do. And you can see I pulled it off there. So this is where we are at now. All the rockers are off, the base is off. And notice these. 3 of the head bolts on here, if these engines have Jakes, will have these style head bolts where they have a stud on top. You need to be sure to put them in the right place. And like I said, I'm going to try and leave the injectors in. I don't see any interference why I can't leave them in that'll prevent me having to reseal them and reinstall them later. So now we're just doing all the auxiliary stuff, hoses, harnesses on the outside of the engine. I got the fuel filter housing disconnected there. This one has like a very difficult to get to bracket that holds the power steering pump here, or power steering reservoir. And you're going to see I'm going to evac out the power steering reservoir and then just leave it connected and let it kind of hang over there. That way it doesn't pour liquid everywhere. Just getting the bracket off that's behind the air compressor. And there's some ground studs on the rear of the engine. They're very difficult to get to on this chassis. And then there's also a coolant line that runs from the back of the cylinder head over to the air compressor. That one also not super easy to get to in this chassis, but have to get it loose either way. So now we're trying to pull the radiator. And the reason we have to pull the radiator, of course, is because we have to pull the camshaft out, and it's in the cylinder block. So we need access to pull that long camshaft out of the cylinder block after we get the cylinder head off. Now the radiator on these, not particularly difficult, nothing special about them, other than the lower mount bolts were kind of a pain. I'm gonna give you kind of close up why that is. But here I'm just trying to, there's a fuel cooler on this one. I'm trying to get the mount bolts off of that already. The coolant hoses have already been removed previous day. And I decided to leave the hood on. It's always a tough call whether you're gonna leave the hood on or not. So we've got our overhead crane. Very nice to have that. For pulling radiators, cylinder heads, stuff like that. And Peterbilt lovingly put a bolt with a nut. 2 of them actually, to hold the radiator in place. And it really makes this difficult. If they had just used like a carriage bolt and a nut, it would make it a lot easier. But I actually have a wrench that's for these chassis, but unfortunately, my wrench doesn't work on this one because this one has a fuel cooler. If it didn't have the fuel cooler, my wrench would fit right in there and be able to get those nuts off a lot easier. But unfortunately, this one does have a fuel cooler. So that was kind of a delay. Not the end of the world though, just part of the job. So finally got the nuts off the bottom of the radiator. Use the crane, pick it up here. And then I usually take it to the rear of the truck and I'll ratchet strap it to a tire or something so it doesn't tip over. And that's what I did. So you can see the radiator's out of place now. We're going to pull the fan drive off and stuff. Stuff that normally if you were just pulling a cylinder head, not the camshaft, you would leave in place and just take the bolts out. But since we're going to have the cam coming out, there's no reason to leave this stuff in place when getting it out of the way would make it easier. I was pulling the alternator there. So there's the fan drive pulling there. And then it's time to remove our head bolts. Now the head bolts on the C12s, C10s also, are not reusable according to CAT specifications because they're a torque to yield bolt. So every time you pull them, you need to get them replaced, which is expensive, but luckily for the customer, this is warranty, so I don't have to worry about that. And pulling the head here, I didn't position the strap right. It would have picked a lot evener that way. But if you noticed, I picked the lifting links in the center of the head. If you're a young guy, first time using cranes, anytime you're picking something kind of long and awkward, try to pick them in the center of the cylinder head. If you do that, it'll let you position it a little different if you need to get it out of a tight spot. So the head off here, we're going to take a look at our number 6 injector cam lobe. And there it is. You can see the deep scratches in it. This was actually a lot less damage than I thought it would be. A lot of times you pull it out and the cam lobe's basically gone. This one, the cam was damaged, but a lot less than I thought it would be. The main culprit here, or the only culprit really, is the lifter. So the roller lifters, but they use like this bronze bushing, and you can see it's not in the housing anymore. So that's the whole reason we're doing this job. This lifter failed, and it wiped out the roller, but it also damaged the camshaft. So gonna have to get a new camshaft. Also, if you're working on a cat roller lifter cam, you were supposed to replace all lifters and the camshaft, not just the bad lifter. So anytime you do a cam, you need to do all the lifters. If it's a C15 that doesn't have lifters but has rocker arms, you're supposed to do the camshaft and all the rocker arms. That's as per CAT's reuse and salvage guidelines for the camshafts. So what we're doing here is heads off, obviously. Took the lifters off, obviously. Now we're just pulling the front timing cover. I was going to reposition the camera so you could see better, but really no good place to put it on the hood. So this is what you got. I'm trying to there's a retaining pin that holds the cam in the block. Had to pull that. And my coworker there is pulling the rear cover plate because there's a removal tool. You can see it on the rear there that will protect the bearings as you remove them. Thought you find that video interesting? Thanks for watching.